This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with vocalist Derek Davis of the band Babylon AD. If I knew absolutely nothing about Babylon AD, how would you describe the band's music to me?
We're a hard driving, kick-ass rock band that, we started in '87, and when like Guns N' Roses and Tesla and Aerosmith were really big, we're that kind of vein, rock band, same kind of hard rock. And, we really, when we were kids, we really were influenced by bands like Montrose, UFO, Aerosmith, Thin Lizzy, AC/DC. You put all that wax together and then you got Babylon AD.
Absolutely. And you guys have a new live album called Live Lightning that... Yep. It's a little confusing on when it's coming out. The press release says March 17th, but I could stream it right now on Apple Music.
Yeah. So what happens is whenever it goes to the distributors, you don't know the exact date that it's going to come out. So they'll tell you, like, put it up about 3 weeks before. Some distributors will have it up within 2 days. Other ones might not have it up for a month. So you really can't say. I mean, I know it's up, on Apple and Spotify and a few other places, but for the hard disk, the CD, and that is you can get that too, pre-ordered through Paris Records and a few different select hits and a few different places right now. But it actually, I guess that's like the street date to hit the stores, that type of thing.
I got you. The album sounds great. It sounds just as great as your past live releases. Actually, when was this performance recorded?
Well, it was taken from 3 separate shows over a time of about maybe 6 months or so. Our sound guy just recorded three shows for us. He just always brought the recording gear with him. And it became apparent after listening to all 3 shows that there was really only 2 shows to pick from. The first one just didn't sound good, and so we had 16 songs to choose from out of 2 shows. And we chose what we thought was sonically the best 14. That's how that came about.
Is it difficult putting together a set list? You have an expansive catalog, and you probably want to favor new material versus classic material.
Yeah, that's always kind of hard because you have brand new material. Like our last album was released in late 2017, I think in November, December, on Frontiers Records, Revelation Highway. And so we have 4 songs of that on the new live album, but it's always hard because you got to play your classics. You got to play the ones that everybody remembers, but at the same time, you really want to play the new ones because you're excited about them, So putting together a set list is always a little bit of a tightrope, but we usually work it out,
Did you have to clean anything up in the studio with this live release?
Yeah, we had to clean up a few things. For me, it's as long as the vocals always sound good and the drums always sound good, that's the main part. Because, like, for instance, there was a few tracks where one of the guitar players, it just sounded thin. It was like maybe the mic wasn't up against the Marshall amp just right. So you're listening to the left side, Ron's guitar, and it just sounds really fat and thick, and it's really killer. And then you listen to the right side, the file with that on it, and it's real thin and kind of cheesy sounding. So you got to kind of manipulate that by, adding EQ and a little bit of effects and stuff like that, unless it's just going to sound lopsided, So we did have maybe about 4 or 5 songs that we did have to do that from. But from a perspective of what was great about it was our drummer, Jamie's timing was his drumming was just like on all the time. I think I could really only hear like one mistake, and we really fine tooth combed it, or whatever the phrase is. And when that's happening, usually the energy of the band is following, that's the engine right there, is the drums and the bass, So it's a little tough, but in the end, I think it sounds pretty damn good, man. I listen to a lot of like the Kiss album and the Peter Frampton Comes Alive and the Cheap Trick Live at Budokan. I kind of put those on while I was getting all the songs together, really to get a sense of like what it really sounded like, back in that day too, And we just got lucky with our crowd audience and things like that. It was like, there was a couple times I had to take the crowd from one song and stick it on another because it just, the recording wasn't good or whatever, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? But there was no really manipulation of stuff. What I hear a lot of people doing, I've read some articles and I'm like, wow, you mean that wasn't really recorded live, So, but this was, so pretty cool.
Now, maybe I'm biased, but I thought that Bango the Bells was probably going to be the closing song, but it's actually towards the beginning. You close out with Kid Goes Wild. Do you always close with Kid Goes Wild?
Yeah. So what we did was we basically kept the set like that was one of our sets. So we got out the set and we went, this is it. This is how we played that one gig. Let's keep it like that. Even though we had to take a few songs from the second gig and throw it in there because they didn't sound as good, as the ones recorded. But and we always close with Kid Goes Wild. It just seems to be, the most manic, craziest song,
I noticed you have a music video for it that kind of documents bits and pieces of the tour. Yep. Had you planned on videotaping the whole tour for a live DVD performance of some type?
Not really. So what happened with that was we always have like GoPro cameras going, or people in the audience may send us stuff that they have, and maybe some gig will be like full on, like there's a video camera going the whole time from the front or, up somewhere else, one of our road crew might not really have nothing to do. So I'll hand them the camera and say, hey, why don't you go on the audience and, that kind of thing. So what we did was we spliced together from 5 different gigs. Because, if you would have just took one gig, it might not have been that exciting, but you take 5 different gigs and you take the best parts of 5 different gigs and the audience and everything like that, and the backstage stuff that we kind of go through, you throw it together. Then I thought it was just a lot cooler than just having just one song, one live video, and that's it on one stage. It kind of gets boring after a couple minutes like that, so we threw some effects in there and made it exciting.
Have you always had 3 guitarists? I noticed 3 guitarists credited on this release.
So here's what happened with that. Dan De La Rosa, John Matthews was our original guitar player when we got a record deal. And then things happened where Dan had to become in the band. The good thing is those guys have played in bands together themselves. So they're like brothers, right? And it was an easy process. And so Dan played with us for about 20 years, up until the point where we recorded some of the concerts. And then John came in the band because Danny wanted to do his own solo album. And at the time we just got signed to Frontiers, but he was like, you know what, man, why don't you guys just call John up? So we were like, okay. So we called John up and John said, absolutely. So he made the Revelation Highway album with us. So then the concert footage and the concerts that were recorded, some of them were recorded with Dan, some of them were recorded with John. And, we don't want to put together and go, well, we're not going to put you in the video or not going to put your name on the album, even though you played on 4 or 5 of the songs. It's like, no, we're all brothers. We all grew up together in the same high school, the same area, and all the stuff like that. So, we're like a big gang, big family. So that's how that worked.
Is Babylon AD currently touring or planning to tour this year?
Yeah, so right now we're working on dates. We've got 4 set dates. We're playing the Whiskey in September, I think, and then we're playing some places around the Bay Area where we're from, and Sacramento, Fresno, places like that. But we're kind of concentrating on a new album. Really, that's what we set out with this live album to do, was to kind of put it like a precursor of like what we're gonna, to let everybody know that we're back, and after COVID and everything, that really kind of screwed everybody up. We didn't do nothing for probably 2.5 years. We talk on the phone, things like that. And we had already had songs written for another record. We had about 7 or 8 songs already in the can, ready to go. But then the COVID thing hit and everything. And we just kind of put it off as long as we can. And then Paris Records, Tom from Paris Records, the president, called me and said, hey, what are you guys doing? And I said, well, I do have some live stuff and we're working on a new studio album. So we decided this would be like a little teaser, to get people know that, hey, man, we're back. You know what I mean? And at the same time, we've been practicing every single weekend, working on new material and getting ready to record a new studio album. So for the next whole year, we're going to be supporting this record, playing this record, and recording another record.
Is this record going to be for Frontiers Music as well?
No, this will be on Paris Records.
So the new studio album will be with Paris.
Yep, just like the live album was. I like Tom a lot. He's a real honest, good guy. Frontiers was a good label and everything like that. But they got 100 bands, so you start getting lost in the mix, and they'll throw you out there for 6 weeks. But a guy like Tom, it's like he's going to stick with you for 6 months and push your record.
I have interviewed a lot of Frontiers artists, and I'm just waiting for one to say that it's so crowded over there.
It's too crowded.
How could you possibly get it out? I feel like I talk to the guy, and then I'm already on the next cycle. I don't even have enough time to take care of promoting both guys.
That's exactly it, man.
Do you have a title going for the new album yet?
No, we don't have no title yet. We've got some really, really good songs, though, man, because what the good thing is John writes music, Ron writes music, and I write music and all the lyrics and melodies and things like that. So between the three of us, we're always able to keep music going. We might go through 10 ideas and pick 3. You know what I mean? And all the ideas will be pretty good, but we're like, nah, this one, this is the song here. And we're always in our minds, we're always trying to say, compared to the stuff, like I said, that we grew up with, like the best Aerosmith stuff, like Back in the Saddle or something, or Lights Out London or Rock Bottom. We're always like thinking of ourselves like we got to have songs that are strong as that, like every single song. You know what I mean? Not just have 4 or 5 throwaways and then we know we have 4 or 5 good ones. We don't we don't want to do that. So we got a lot of material to choose from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want to date you, but next year is the 35th anniversary of your
I can't believe it. Hard to believe, man.
I know that they were recently put back out by a record label overseas, but do you have anything planned to celebrate the 35th anniversary?
I haven't even really thought about that yet, because we've been concentrating, doing the live thing, doing the new studio album, but now I'm going to start thinking about that.
Excellent. What do you remember about that time? I mean, you were a fresh new band signed by a big label, not necessarily a rock label, but signed by a big label for your debut album.
Yeah. You kind of grow up pretty fast. You've got a fantasy in your head what it's like to have a record deal, and you just dream about it all the time. And then when you get the record deal, it takes about 6 months to sink in that really a record label is just a big, gigantic bank, and you're just part of the machine, and you got to pay that back someday, somehow, and it looks all good and everything. You're out there on tour, you're having fun. And that's the best part is the mayhem and just the crazy shit that happens on the road, and it being in a gigantic studio with a producer like Tom Werman or something. Those are the things that really are meaningful to you, so that's how I've always looked at it, and you feel like you think to yourself, well, I'm an artist, I want to do this, I want to do that. You get that in your head, but the record label is still telling you what to do or telling you not to do. At least Clive was telling me, having arguments with me on the phone. No, you're going to do this or you're not, So, you find out real fast, man, that that's a business. And that was one of the reasons we kind of walked away the first time, we all kind of went our separate ways. About 94, we all just kind of said, what's the point, man? The record, it was just such sour taste in our mouths, and it took a while until 2000 when we just regrouped again and just said, no, look, from now on, we're going to do everything on our own terms, the way we want to do it, without a major label telling us what to do, even though it's nice to be on a major label. Like I said, it's just a big, giant bank,
Well, today it's a lot easier for artists to really record an album for cheap money now and make it sound like it was big money. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I've got a recording studio at my house. I've done probably 5 albums here. You know what I mean? So Ron's got a recording studio at his house. It's a lot easier nowadays. The technology is just as good as it was back there. You don't need a 2-inch Studer, recording, machine anymore, to sound just as good,
In your downtime from Babylon AD, I noticed you put out a few solo albums, a little more bluesy than Babylon AD. Even your last solo album, Resonator Blues, was like more classic kind of Southern blues.
Yeah. Yeah. I did that album. I did I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Moonshine, but we did that one too. And that was done a few years ago at Eddie Van Halen's house. And that had Jane Child on it. Michael Anthony sang backgrounds. It's a killer album, man. I just wish that we would have had some kind of push behind that album. It's a cross between like Leonard Skinner meets the Outlaws at the Allman Brothers house or something. You know, a lot of harmonica, a lot of piano, tons of slide guitar. But it's a killer album, man. It sounds great, and we did it all at 5150, about 90% of it, anyways. But it just didn't get no push, and everybody goes off and starts doing their own thing within a few months, and it's like, well, that died on the vine, you know. And I did Revolutionary Soul, which was like a soul rock album, you know, along the lines of maybe I can't think of the guy's name right now. Dan Reed Network, remember that?
Oh yeah, I interviewed him.
Something like that. It had rock stuff, but I did a lot of Bobby Womack type of songs. That's the only way I could describe it. You know, I listen to a lot of James Brown, Bobby Womack, Marvin Gaye, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, had some hard rock in there, guitar too. You know, listen to a lot of Sly Stone. So I'm always writing, man. I mean, you could probably tell I'm pretty hyper, but you know, I just sit in the fucking studio and I just write. You know what I mean? And I record, and I just love it, man. And I'm just glad that my wife puts up with my you know, being in the studio all the time. You know, a lot of wives wouldn't. My first wife wouldn't.
So do you write and record for other artists, like behind the scenes, or as a studio guy?
Not as much as I used to, because I keep a lot of stuff for myself. I used to do that, and I used to write with Jack Pawnee and a few other guys. You know, but I don't know, man. I find most of the stuff that I write, and I write a lot of different type of styles, and I just kind of put them in little boxes in my head of where, well, these two songs are going to go on my acoustic album I'm going to do someday. And then I'll write these other kind of songs that are, you know, soul, or I'll play slide guitar for 3 or 4 songs. Oh, this one's going to go on this album, you know. Then sometimes I think to myself, what's the point? Just mash them all together, you know. But and then I write the Babylon AD stuff. I'll write the real heavy rock stuff, you know. And then sometimes I'm just sitting there on the keyboards and I'm writing, like, you know, stuff that sounds like Devo almost. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? I don't know, but it sounds cool, you know. So it's fun, man.
The 80s were known for their excess and debauchery and crazy rock star behavior. When you guys were coming up, did you succumb to any of that crazy rock star behavior?
Absolutely. But we were already like that before we moved to Hollywood. You know, we were from the Bay Area. And like I said, we all grew up together, you know, out of high school, you know, about maybe, there must have been a gang of about 15 of us, you know, 6 or 7 of it, 8 of us, maybe musicians. The rest of the guys either started working for us, road crew, or built studios, or somehow we all just kept hanging out over years and years and years, you know. And when we first got together, it was just party every single night. You know, that's all you do when you're not playing. You play, when you party sometimes while you're playing, you know. Then when we got down to Los Angeles, it was like, well, this is same exact thing we do every night, when, you know. And there was a time where I remember where it got like, after two or 3 years living in Los Angeles, man, I wouldn't even go out on a Friday or a Saturday because it was just too much. You know what I mean? You'd go out on a Sunday when you could like walk into the, you know, the Troubadour or something like that, or walk into the Rainbow. You know what I mean? Friday and Saturday nights were like mayhem, you know, 1,000 people on the streets, you know. So yeah, I mean, and of course, when we went on the road, we ended up in jail a couple of times for different stuff. I don't want to talk about that, but you know, we were pretty crazy, man, you know, and we still are, to be honest with you. I don't think none of us has really grown up.
You just need more time to sleep it off.
Exactly. You hit that one right on the head, man. And we go to bed a little bit earlier, I think, than we used to. Before, it was like, if you see the sun come up, it's like, oh shit, man, I got to go to bed. Now it's like, I don't even think about the sun coming up. I'm sleeping by 11, you know?
Well, Derek, that's all the questions I have for you today. The new album is Live Lightning by Babylon AD. Great live album. Sounds great. Sounds like I'm right there. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. KNAC still rocks, too. That's what I love.
KNAC does still rock.